These are Nebraska corn farmers. They work in acres, not hours, harvesting the energy and climate solutions the world needs. We are proud to stand with you.
The success of tomorrow's soy industry depends on the actions we take today. The future is here, and the time to move is now.
Market Journal Television for Agricultural Business Decisions is a presentation of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources in partnership with the Nebraska Rural Radio Association. Promotional support provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine and partial funding provided by the Nebraska Soybean Board and the Nebraska Corn Board.
Hi everyone, I'm Bryce Newskit, and thank you very much for joining us today on Market Journal. Our team's still out for the holidays, but we wanted to ring in the new year by looking back at some of our favorite stories. From technology to specialty crops, we've gotten to see a lot over the past year when it comes to agriculture. To that point, let's kick things off here. From specialty crop inspections with quadcopters to spraying with octocopters, drones have been changing the face of agriculture over the past few years. Now one company is looking to utilize drones to enhance weather profiling using what they're calling Weather-Hive. A recent test flight of this technology took place over the fields of the Eastern Nebraska Research, Extension and Education Center, and you bet Market Journal was on hand to find out how it all works.
You're landing. Is a robotics and avionics company focused on creating novel solutions using things like drones and other types of robotics for defense, agriculture, and now weather purposes. I think for agriculture, it can really be used to help understand maybe land and atmosphere interactions between what you're growing. Also maybe to monitor, the field crops, temperature, humidity, things like that, which might provide insight on pests and other things. And then in addition, I think spray application is a good one because we can make sure we're looking at the wind speed, the wind direction to optimize times for spraying for agriculture and things like that. Today we are testing Weather-Hive, which is our new drone system. It works by using AI-coordinated swarms of nano drones that are about the size of our palm. And they work together to sample the atmosphere, providing near real-time observations of temperature, relative humidity, pressure, wind speed, and direction that can then be used for weather prediction, modeling, and more. I think this is a great site because there's so many different crops being grown, a variety of different types of crops being grown, so we can really test and see what we're able to observe and whether we can see those micro-scale differences with respect to the environment over the different crops. And then I think for UNL, in particular the Mesonet, it provides us an opportunity to collaborate and to kind of build that partnership and hopefully see in the future whether we can work together to provide that weather information and make sure we're covering everything spatially.
So the goal of the Nebraska Mesonet, so right now we have about 70 stations across the state that measure all the weather variables and soil variables. So when I met GreenSight back in February at the NASA conference, I thought that their technology with these nano drones can help provide additional data to what we offer because it offers greater spatial coverage than just a point. So rather than getting a point measurement with our stations, we're able to get temperature, humidity, and other wind data over several miles, a continuous measurement several miles from the station. And that data that Jacola and GreenSight takes can then be fed into crop growth models, wildfire models, and other, especially for modeling purposes. And actually the National Weather Service also wants this data for profile data for severe weather and other. It offers them better data on evapotranspiration, and as Jacola said, atmospheric earth fluxes. So the big one for farmers is evapotranspiration. And then that data is also fed into the better crop yield models, which not only are good for crop modeling for yield, but for crop stress and drought, influences of drought and or too much water. I think this is a great opportunity as we go forward. I'm hoping that the Mesonet and GreenSat work together to get these weather hives out at strategic locations across the state. And then we can provide data to the Forest Service, to the National Weather Service, to farmers and researchers at UNL.
If you'd like to learn more about GreenSight's Weather-Hive drone system, we've provided a useful link along with this story. Head on over to the Market Journal homepage to find it. Moving on, just outside of Beatrice, Nebraska, there is a buzz in the air about local honey products. This summer, the Market Journal team had the opportunity to get a private tour of the Bee Bum Honeybee Farm to learn more about how they produce and market their unique products.
Joining me now is beekeeper of this farm, Kevin Monfelt at Bee Bum. Kevin, appreciate the time today. Interested to hear how you got started with honeybees.
Well, it started as a hobby about 10 years ago, Bryce. I was in construction at that time, and one of my friends suggested that I needed a hobby. And so I bought a box of bees. My wife was shocked. She had no idea that I was getting them. And then they showed up, and it just has snowballed from there. We operate about 300 colonies right now. Our short-term goal is to be around 400 the next year or so.
It's a lot of honeybees. Try to put it in perspective. How many bees are in each one of these colonies?
This time of year, there's probably somewhere around 45 or 50,000 bees in there. So
we add all that up, comes to that million number I mentioned.
Yeah, a lot of bees, a lot of bees.
How do you go from hobby to commercial beekeeper?
I don't know. It just kind of happened. We've been very blessed. Everything, we couldn't have planned this to turn out the way that it has. I mean, there's been so many people that have helped us on our journey, and the farm that we're actually on was my wife's grandparents' place. My father-in-law grew up here, so a lot of family history for us, so it's great for us to be here. We love it. But as far as we just, we started that first year with one hive. A few years later, we were up to around 12 or 13. And then we started dabbling in different products. We first was just giving our honey to our friends and family. And then we started selling things. And I wanted to do something different than what other people were doing. I wanted to do things just besides plain honey. So I really started studying creamed honey and infused honey. And those really are our gold mark products that we have here. I'm very proud of our creamed honey. We have about 18 different flavors throughout the year. We just came out with a new one called Lime and the Coconut, and it's really popular already. It's only been out a week, so we sold out of it at 2 events this weekend. So it's pretty crazy how things go, but yeah.
There's a lot of unique things about what you do, and I've been able to learn about them over the past couple of years getting to know you, Kevin. But one of those things is the fact that you take some of your beehives and travel south for the winter. Why do you do that?
Well, it's so that our bees will build up and be ready to split a little earlier than they would be if we left them here. So we sell new colonies to other beekeepers or people wanting to get into beekeeping. So a nucleus colony is just 5 frames of bees, brood, and a queen. Laying queen, and so we sell those. Typically they start going out the 3rd week of April, and this year they went for a long time. I think we didn't finish. We had some onesie twosies that went out all the way until like June, so yeah.
What makes a good year for honeybees in Nebraska?
Oh boy, that's a tough question there. This has been a really good year. We've had banner honey crop this year. The rain, obviously has helped some. There's been an abundance of sweet clover this year, And a couple weeks ago, the white sweet clover started kicking in as the yellow sweet clover was fading out. So, and then also too, if you can build relationships with row crop farmers, you can get a little honey off of some soybeans too. So all of those things help to make it a good year. You got to stay on top of your bee health to make a good honey crop though. Make sure your bees are healthy. So
That's where I wanted to go next. What's the single biggest challenge when it comes to having honeybees at this scale?
Keeping ahead of the mites, it really is. Where we go south for the winter, our bees start making mites much sooner than our bees that stay in Nebraska. So the bees that went south to Florida this year, we were doing splits on those already in late February. So they were brooding up the end of January down there already. And so they just, mites, one mite goes in a cell, 3 to 5 come out. So you got to stay ahead of those mites and treat. So those bees have been treated a lot more than our bees that stayed in Nebraska. But those mites are a vector for a lot of other diseases and stuff. And I could talk all day, honestly, about where that could go. But killing mites is really the beekeeper's #1 duty. You got to stay on top of that and keep those mites dead. So.
In the stores, when people see honey, obviously the byproduct of honey bees, it's pretty much at most you'll see a pound of honey being sold at a time, but give people an idea of the scale of what it's like to have 300 colonies. How many pounds of honey are you expecting to harvest this year?
We're hoping to be somewhere around 6,500 pounds. And quite honestly, that's pretty small scale compared to larger commercial operations that manage thousands of hives. We're pretty small in the scope of things, but we're pretty proud of that because that's going to be our biggest honey crop so far. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate the insights. What else is fascinating you want to share with us here today on Market Journal?
We're not just a beekeeping operation here. We also raise sweet corn and pumpkins that we have for sale here. So we're just kind of a little multifaceted 10-acre farm that we're just trying to keep things going.
My thanks to both Kevin and Julie for showing us around their operation. Here's a fun fact for you. Nebraska's state insect since 1975. Honeybees pollinate over 90 crops in the state, including alfalfa, sunflowers, and watermelons, which all total up to more than $10 billion annually. Honey production also about a $4 million industry here in the Cornhusker State. Well, last spring, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln broke ground as part of a program called NFarms. This program has a mission to expand precision ag capabilities, standardize data, and utilize cloud-based ag data storage. Not only that, but it's also bringing valuable expertise in ag software, offering data-driven decision tools. To dive deeper into this project, our very own Market Journal's Mike Straub caught up with some of the key figures involved in the NFarms project.
NFarms will be a test bed for new technologies as well as platforms to help farmers collect data more efficiently. The initiative will also develop innovative decision-making tools producers can use for efficient field management.
So NFarms is the Nebraska Future Ag Research and Management Systems, and high level we're hoping to be, the test bed for new technology and data-driven decisions here at the farm, where researchers, industry partners can interact with our farm and feedlot operations to develop and test new technologies in a real-world system. We, as is our mission here, to support not just research and extension, but teaching. We hope that this can be a location where students can come, work on new technologies, develop new technologies, and evaluate those technologies, whether those are undergraduate students or graduate students that are developing new systems. Having a space for those folks to work is something that we haven't had here before. Having a space for our industry partners to come work, again, at a facility that pretty much mimics production scale systems, not just on the crop and feedstock production side, but also on the animal production side. Well, we're excited. We're hoping that the new facility here, it's about 5,000 to 6,000 square feet of office and lab space. We're hoping that's up and running by the first of the year. So January is our target date. Our long-term vision is this could be more of a campus, think about it as an innovative ecosystem for those industry partners. You know, they may want space of their own. You think about aspects we don't really touch on today, like grain storage. We do a lot of irrigation, but having site specific for irrigation. So really the long-term vision is to really have almost a campus here where those groups can come and get together and be innovative.
The university's precision ag work at the Eastern Nebraska Research, Extension, and Education Center will operate under real-world conditions on a scale like that of actual working farms. The research involves both irrigated and dryland fields.
This is the story, really the stepwise pathway to get to today, where we're really groundbreaking for the building that's hosting the NFarms initiative. It's the perfect story of how a group of scientists and a group of our faculty and researchers and also a group of leaders got together and realized that we need to get a better platform. We need to create a space where we can get together with industry, get together with producers, and really then provide a glue that can connect all these groups together as advances in precision agriculture are just happening faster and faster. So that's really the background and the foundation. So we poured that foundation as an idea. And now today we're groundbreaking for the building that's going to host that platform. And then the future now as we're moving forward, again, is this opportunity for our industry partners, our producers, and our researchers to get together and really think about what is the future, what is the present, and how are we going to get there? And how can that be useful and helpful for our producers to continue, you know, in the Nebraska tradition of producing safe, affordable, and nutritious food that's going to feed into the humans, the animals, and then also into the other industries that are supported in our bioeconomy. So, you know, research and precision technology and the development of technology, that's what's really driving the engine for the Nebraska economy, especially in agriculture. So we need to be in close connection to them. Our industry partners, they hear from their customers. Our Nebraska Extension Network, they hear from the producers. We're here in the middle to be this connector and have that opportunity to say that, oh, we have this idea, can we test it at farm scale? And that's what we provide them, is this low risk opportunity. And then the next year we can connect with one of our producers on our on-farm research network to implement that out and actually in a scaled system where they can check on the profitability and the challenges or potentially the really enhancements that technology can bring.
NFarms will provide private sector opportunities. As advancements are made, companies and entrepreneurs will be able to use the precision ag resources to test ideas for new methods, products, and services. Reporting for Market Journal, I'm Mike Straub.
Some pretty neat things happening up there near Mead, Nebraska at that research center. If you'd like to learn more, you can simply visit cropwatch.unl.edu and search the term NFarms. Well, it is now time to check in on weather with Market Journal's Eric Hunt. However, as I mentioned, we're looking back this week to a special report this time around from Market Journal's Eric Hunt. Over the past 2 years, NASA has been partnering with multiple academic institutions to better understand and promote climate sustainability. This partnership led NASA to the University of Nebraska's Eastern Nebraska Research, Extension, and Education Center near Mead to further their study. And you bet, Market Journal's Eric Hunt was on hand to learn about it.
Well, thanks, Bryce. Today I'm out here at the Mead NREC site with Dr. Robert Swap, who is the Associate Mission Planning Director for Earth Sciences Division at NASA Goddard. Bob, what brings you this part of the country?
Well, hello, Eric. It's nice to be out here at NREC today, University of Nebraska-Lincoln's experimental site. I'm out here today to take a look ahead of a field campaign that we're going to be running and overflying this particular part of the country called WIMSE, West Coast Heartland Hyperspectral Microwave Sounder Intensive Experiment. It's a mouthful, but we call it WIMSE. And I'm out here today to take a look at some of the facilities that we were able to install out here. In the background, you'll be able to see a trailer in the far distance from the University of Wisconsin, part of our partnership. They have a high spectral resolution LiDAR. And next to that, a little white box in the front. That is a box, a LiDAR, a wind cube LiDAR, which allows us to look at the wind speed in 3 dimensions near the surface of the Earth up to about 10 kilometers. And that's being provided by Vaisala, the company that's based out of Colorado. And right here, we have a flux tower, a microflux tower, a micromet flux tower that does both trace gases, as you can see on the side, but also gives us an understanding of the wind. And why we're out here in this particular area is that we are studying new instrument techniques, observation techniques, to help us better understand the connection between the Earth's surface and the atmosphere just above it. We call that the planetary boundary layer.
But really, what is the major impact for farm production, and why did you guys choose this site here at NREC? I mean, there's lots of flat fields around the Midwest you could have chosen. Why specifically did you choose this University of Nebraska site?
With respect to why are we here, what's the importance of the boundary layer and understanding the processes of the boundary layer with respect to agriculture, we know that things are changing, and we know that the dynamics, how quickly the boundary layer grows or decays or doesn't decay, can have an impact on water stress on plants. Okay, for farmers, that's very important. If you got new crop or you're getting ready to harvest and you're putting incredibly more stress on the plant, that can be a challenge. And the other thing too, for rangeland management, we know that at nighttime, if we don't have that boundary layer collapse and we have these heat domes build, we know that's an added stress to their product as well. So what we're interested in is that we need to better understand this dynamic surface that connects the ground to the atmosphere and through which energy is transferred. We have to understand how those dynamics are changing. With respect to the question you asked about why here, why Nebraska, why this particular facility, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln with the NREC site has a storied career here. It's more than 20 years of observations that take place. You have an incredible insight and understanding to the longitudinal nature of changes on this facility. And it's very important for people like ourselves that don't have the luxury of being in the same place, same time, much like you all have been for 2+ decades, to be able to take our intensive experience and experiment and couch our observations within your longer term understanding. Given the fact that we have this growing relationship between universities in the heartland, especially University of Nebraska-Lincoln with the HEART project, the Heartland Environmental Alliance for Resilience and Transformation, and a partnership we have with the University of Wisconsin by supplying equipment, and the University of Iowa, which will be providing the aircraft that'll be flying the instruments from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. This is an opportunity to really capture and realize the potential that exists in this part of the country.
As you can tell, 2024, a big one for the team up at NREC. My thanks to Eric for getting us that special report this past year. Finally today, one area of concern going into the planting season was white mold. There may be some similar concerns again this year. With that in mind, we're looking back to one of our first interviews of 2024 as we discussed white mold considerations with Nebraska Extension plant pathologist Dylan Mangel. Joining us this week on Crop Talk is Nebraska Extension's Dylan Mangel. Dylan, it's always good to see you. We're in the midst of winter meeting season, which means you're hearing from a lot of producers what went well, some of the challenges also in 2023. I understand something you're getting asked a lot about right now is white mold. What's the story there?
That's right. Yeah, we've had a surprising amount of questions on white mold. We knew it was bad in 2023, but I just don't think we knew exactly how bad it was. And from growers all over the state, especially in areas we're not used to seeing it, growers really experienced it last year.
Okay, let's back up a little bit, talk about what is white mold and what's it look like out in the field.
So white mold is also called sclerotinia stem rot. It's a fungus that's going to grow, it's going to stay in the soil, and then when the moisture gets right in the springtime, it'll pop up and it'll infect those plants. The problem with this one is it can stay in the soil for a long time. You're really not going to get rid of it once it's in a field. But what happens when it gets on those plants is it infects through the flowers, and then there's a period of delay before you start to see symptoms that could last several weeks. And then into August, you'll start to see those symptoms show up on the plant, which looks like a cottony, fluffy mold growing, starting on the stem from where that infection point was and radiating up and down that stem until it kills the plant.
What kind of yield loss is associated with white mold?
It really depends how many plants you lose. So we've got growers that you'll experience just a couple intermittent plants that were lost and you're not going to see a lot, but those plants will be dead. But there's also cases where it'll show up in big pockets, and on the yield monitor you'll just see yields drop down to basically nothing where you've lost the plants in those areas.
And where geographically in Nebraska are you hearing reports from this past year?
So traditionally it's been in northwest or northeast Nebraska in those rain-fed areas, but what happened this year is it really showed up as far south as the Kansas border, not at high levels, but there's definitely pockets through the irrigated parts of the state as well as that traditional area up in the northeast that really suffered from it.
You mentioned flowering is kind of the time where you're going to start to see this in irrigated and maybe more heavily rain-fed areas or where it's impacted. Why is that? Bring us through the science of how this works.
So the plant is only susceptible during flowering because that fungus has to infect those flowers, and that's the only place it can get into the plant. When you get moisture and that aligns with that flowering window, and you know there's a lot of flowering windows on beans now that are quite long, so when you get that moisture, those spores are going to develop then on the soil surface, and they'll move up and they'll infect those plants right when that moisture shows up if the plant is susceptible then.
Obviously, as we look back on last year, nothing we could do about it in the rearview mirror, but moving forward, if you identify white mold in your field, what can you do in 2024 about this?
So in 2024, if you start to see white mold, the only thing you can really do in season is try to protect those plants. You've got to get there and protect the plants before they're infected though. That's going to be happening when flowers are present. So as soon as R1 shows up and you've got flowers present, and the plant grows to be more susceptible as there's more present, so into R2, that's when you need to protect those plants. This also aligns with canopy closure. So you've got to protect those flowers. I generally recommend aiming treatments towards late R1, early R2, right about when canopy closes is going to be that optimal timing to protect those with a foliar fungicide. Now that's what you can do in season. But leading into 2024, if you still have time in variety selection, think about pitting a variety on those white mold fields or fields that have had a history of that in the past that has a good rating, a good disease rating for white mold.
You told me too, how much space you have in between your rows might play a factor, those with a 15-inch spacing.
Yep, so when it comes to white mold, it's all about managing moisture in those plots and that humidity under the canopy surface. So growers have had success in the past moving from 15-inch rows to 30-inch rows where they've had a history of white mold. Now there's downsides to increasing your row spacing too, so think about what your other problems are and decide if white mold's severe enough. Opening those rows up a little bit is going to let air get through there a little bit better. It's going to delay canopy closure and it'll shorten that susceptibility window for white mold.
Always nice to hear from Dylan, and we'll have him back again regularly in 2025. If you'd like to learn more about white mold, something to keep an eye on ahead of the 2025 season, you can visit cropwatch.unl.edu. Well, folks, that's about all the time we have for this week's broadcast. We will be back next week with all new content, but until then, I'm Bryce Duskett, wishing you a safe and productive week.
Join Market Journal online at marketjournal.unl.edu. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Promotional support is provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine. Market Journal is produced by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources.